Budget rifles are a major conversation on the internet. We use a lot of fancier rifles, MCXs, Remington R5s. We recently got a bunch of those, and a bunch of custom rifles and Mark 18s and things like that. Rifles that are a little more expensive than your average budget entry-level sporting rifle type of gun. This is an M&P Sport 2, and what we're going to be doing in this video is answering the question, can you build out a rifle for $1,000? Now, the short answer is not really.
Yes, very sad. Anyway.
In the whole grand scheme of things, no, you're not going to build a rifle for under $1,000. It isn't feasible or possible when you are adding together all the other support gear. Hearing protection, eye pro, chest rig to complement the rifle, ammunition. I have a box of Winchester 55 grain right here. In 2019, it would have been $290, 300 bucks around there. But right now, when this video is being filmed, is around $650. So this right here, 1,000 rounds of 5.56, means that this is not going to work for $1,000. Optics and weapon lights, iron sights, a sling, extra magazines, it's just not going to happen. But let's talk about the M&P Sport 2. I haven't shot this yet, so we're going to see exactly what's going on with it. Now, I want you all to understand before we go any further, this is not, I repeat, this is not a product review. I'm not going to shoot this gun with 200 rounds and give my stamp of approval. This would need a lot more ammunition, a lot more time on the gun. I'm going to be using it sparingly, you know, 400 rounds for this video, mainly talking about costs of other equipment and just a few things about this gun. This is not a product review, and I'm not going to say this gun's awesome. Now, for what this gun does, it's not bad for the price. These are around $650. We have our price point right here on it. The gun, this is the one that has the MOE handguard, it's not MO, it's actually M-LOK. The Picatinny gas block, so it does not have a fixed front sight post. And it's obviously, this is the Sport 2, so it has the forward assist and the dust cover. Two things that I actually really like. The Sport 1 does not have those. They added those for the Sport 2. So $650, $700 around there. You know, gun broker, you can check there and whatnot. Comes with a single PMag, so you're gonna need more magazines. So right there, the price goes up. And one M-LOK Picatinny section, and we're good to go. Now, the worst thing about this gun that you will not find other YouTubers talking about, there's one thing about this gun that is absolutely dreadful, despicable, and disgusting. And that is the text right there. Sport. Now, the problem with the word sport is it implies that this is not a weapon of war, that this is not an offensive weapon, that this is not a defensive weapon, that this is a rifle that you will use at your local competition to plink Coke bottles on a log. That's not at all what this is. This is essentially a 16-inch barreled M4. But this is absolutely a weapon of war. And the problem with the gun rights movement and the gun rights culture in general is we've been neutering ourselves for decades. We've been slowly being on the defensive, never on the offensive, in terms of educating people on what these guns actually are. And that starts with the education from manufacturers. You know, if we had manufacturers who were willing to actually say what their firearms are and what they're actually for, I believe we would have a lot less regulation than we have today. If companies didn't lean into sporting use, didn't lean into saying, oh, you don't need an AR-15 for hunting. It's because of that attitude from manufacturers and consumers that has resulted in gun regulations, you know, going beyond obviously what we've had in the past. So I think that's despicable that guns like these are called sport. The only thing that is, by definition, that makes this rifle a sporting rifle compared to a standard M4 is it does not have a full auto bolt carrier group. This is going to be a semi-auto only weapon. But that doesn't mean that this gun can't be used for militaristic type activities or activities such as defending your house, your livelihood, your home, and your family. So that's the biggest problem with this gun, is simply the naming scheme for this and the cultural effects of that. So for $650, I have a rifle that has no weapon light to identify what I am shooting at and no iron sights for me to be able to aim. Now, they have another version of this that has a fixed front sight post and a rear sight. So out of the box for, I think it's around $780, I do have a set of sights. But for $650, I got nothing. So I'm going to need, there's two things in particular that I definitely want right out of the gate. I want a rifle sling to hold the rifle to me. Holds the gun to you. It's basically a holster for a pistol, more or less. So I have a T.REX arm sling here, $55. A QD swivel, $15. So I can QD this to, well, I actually don't have a QD point. So I would either need to add a QD point here to the forend, which is what I will do. And then I will just attach the sling here to the back of the buttstock. And then the next thing I'm going to need is a sighting system of some sort, iron sights or red dot. Now, there's all sorts of budget red dots out on the market. You've got like, the Vortex Spark, it's 280 bucks. I know you might say like, oh, that's not budget. Budget is fairly relative based on what you're willing to invest in, what you're willing to spend. But compared to something like an Aimpoint Pro, which this is a budget level aim point at $445, this is fairly budget. I do not recommend you try to buy like an NC Star or something like that that's going to fail and recoil and not remain zeroed. This is a SIG Romeo 5. These are $140. Foreign made optic. It's not horrible. The Spark, not bad, 280 bucks. We have the primary arms. I think this is the SLX. This is 170. And then we also have the primary arms Cyclops here. This is a prismatic 1X optic, which is pretty cool. If you have an astigmatism, something like that, that's where these little prism optics can be a little better. You have an etched reticle, so if the battery dies, well, I still have something I can shoot with. So as a redundancy type of a thing, these are actually kind of rad. I haven't even used this yet, but it's kind of cool. Prismatic optics are fun. I've used them before. But honestly, what I would do on this gun, if I wanted to stay within budget and have something effective, I would simply drop a set of iron sights on there. Now, because this is a metal gas block with Picatinny on it, I do not recommend you put a polymer front sight post on this. I've heard stories of these heating up and causing all sorts of issues to polymer front sight posts. So I recommend you get a metal front sight post. And for that, I would recommend and I do recommend these, I think they're great, is the Daniel Defense iron sight set. These are 130 bucks around there for a set, and you have a very durable, high quality set of iron sights. So 650 plus 130. We have a rifle sling, which we can add. So now the next thing is our weapon light. What weapon light are we going to use? And that's the next thing that I would add to this rifle. And I know you guys might be thinking, well, wait, you're not going to run a red dot, you're going to run irons? Yeah, I'm going to run irons because they're quite a bit cheaper than any of the red dots that are right here. They work pretty much all the time, although at night they're not super easy to shoot with unless you have a really good weapon light. But the next thing is going to be a weapon light on this gun before I even want to upgrade to a red dot, because I can only shoot what I can see, so I have to have a weapon light on my gun. All the arguments that, oh, it'll give away your position. Well, yeah, guns are dangerous. That's kind of the point. Like, yeah, you're going to give away your position, but then you can actually see what you're shooting at. So there's a few options. A lot of folks, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, which you probably are going to think Olight, because Olight basically came in and owns everyone on YouTube because they paid everyone to do positive ads for their company. And trust me, they tried to get us to run ads for their company. So everyone on YouTube is going to say Olight because, they're cheap, 100 bucks, whatever, rechargeable batteries, they won't explode, whatever. There's no reason to buy, in my opinion, an Olight when you can go and buy select surefire options for under $100. Proven weapon lights that are very effective, or something like a Streamlight. Yes, it's foreign made, but Streamlight is an American company. They do employ lots of Americans, and they have a much better track record than a company like Olight. And they don't pay shills to go and say their products are good. They just let the product stand on its own, and that's a big deal to us. So Streamlight, you've got this one right here. This is the ProTac Rail Mount HLX, 100 bucks, give or take, 120, somewhere around there, depending on where you go. This is a Surefire handheld in a Magpul. This is actually one of my favorite options. It's very OG, but it's actually really good. Magpul mount, which is around, I think they're around $30, $35. And then this particular Surefire, I believe, is $50 to $60. So right there, you're looking at between $80 and $100 for a Surefire light on your gun. Push cap, momentary and or constant if you push it all the way forward. And then this guy right here, same thing. This is, I think, a Surefire G2X with a very simple GG and G. Yeah, man, that name's always just like weird to say. GG and G rail clamp mount, so very traditional like. Again, push cap, but I'm set for 75 bucks. So Surefire for $75. So just I love it when people are like, oh, well, Surefire is like you're going to spend $300 no matter what. Well, no, if you have a little bit of ingenuity and you're willing to use a handheld on a rifle, no, you're not, but you can still have Surefire. American made, like, hey, why not? So we have our weapon lights. So we're going to pick one of these. We have this set up right here, and we're close to $1,000, but then I have to go buy my extra magazines. I've got two over here for 11 bucks each. The rifle sling, the ammo, chest rig, or a sidecar with a rifle mag carrier. So no matter what, I'm over $1,000, all said and done. So let's go ahead and build this out. So there's a few different ways we can mount the light to this gun. One of my favorite things, especially on a gun like this, is the Fab Defense, what's this called? BSR-1. I think the -2 has 2 posts, but it's a barrel clamp, traditional barrel clamp with Picatinny. So on a few different guns like the Alpha Uppers or longer barrels and things like that, where I want to free up a little bit of room, this is a carbine length handguard. It actually means I can push the light a little further out and have more room on the handguard without a light like touching, my hand. Based on how I set this up, it will also put the light in a better position for activating the push cap. So this is $30. If I want to stay truly budget, I wouldn't buy that. I would just use the Picatinny they provide. If I want to go, I want to spend a little more money, a little more coin, have a nicer gun. I mean, this is an M&P Sport too, after all. I could get this, and then after that, I could attach this guy. So 75-31, so that's 100 something. Boom, attach that. That's pretty dope right there. Kind of angle it in, push the button. Yeah, I think we'll do that. I think that's gonna be the play. We'll do that, at least for this build. Gotta have the right thingy though. So we have that ready to go. Then we take our $75 Surefire, because I can do that for cheap money. All right, so there we go, using the Fab Defense barrel mount, pushing the light all the way out to here. So now my entire hand can actually be on the handguard for a little bit better control. I'm not touching like a light on this side or a Picatinny section or anything. And my thumb can very easily articulate the white light right here. So it's for $106, I have a Surefire on my gun. Yes, you can do it. So the sling is a big deal. I have a Magpul sling mount here that's M-locked. That's going to be clash hooked facing backwards, gives me a little more room for my hand. Then a QD section there, so we're actually going to use that. That's like 20 bucks, I think, something like that. Clash hook, I think, is around 5, so 25 plus 55, so that's, quick maths, that's 80. So $80 sling add to the gun. We're going to clash hook this end though. This is the T.REX sling. Then we're going to double this back on itself so it doesn't come out. Boom. And then, this is important. I don't like using the sling mount attached to the back of the stock. It can like dig into you and catch on kit and stuff. So I always remove this sucker. This thing is going to go away. Very simple, just flathead screwdriver. Screw just comes right out. This thing pops out. Get rid of that. Also freeze the gun up, ounces equal pounds. And then double this back to itself. All right. The sling could be a little bit tighter, so I can modify that right here in the front. I've already got it tight right here. But there we go. We've got a sling on this rifle, a set of iron sights, and a Surefire light for not a ton of money. One included magazine. Nice. Oh, shoot. This is very important that we do this. This costs, the price for this is priceless. But we do not like logos here at T.REX Arms. We're going to cover up this bright white target indicator. We're going to get rid of this logo because it's very bright and in your face. There we go. That's 20 bucks right there, plus $20. So with the way that this build is configured right here, I just ran the math, we are at $966. So we are at $1,000 for this build with a good rifle sling, a good set of iron sights, and a very decent weapon light. However, there's no ammo involved and there's no additional magazines. So if I add 2 more PMags, that's 22 bucks, plus obviously some shipping depending on where you go and buy. So then we're right under $1,000, and that doesn't include ammunition, that doesn't include a chest rig or a way to carry more ammo or a messenger bag or a duffel bag or, fill in the blank. So is it that reasonable to think that you can build out a full loadout or kit for $1,000? Not really, unless you're willing to build your own chest rig out of duct tape and run in with a single magazine and a handful of bullets. There's a lot of different ways I can build this rifle out. I mean, I can throw an extra 400 bucks on with an Aimpoint Pro. This thing is an awesome little setup with this optic. I could ditch the irons and run another red dot. I could ditch this light and run, the stream light or this guy right here. But this is the configuration that I would probably run this rifle in as I'm trying to go as budget as possible with this gun. I will run iron sights, not a cheap red dot that's like 150 bucks. I would much rather run irons. And with training, you can get very good with irons. Don't think that, you know, irons are completely defunct. There are some benefits to irons over red dot. There's very few benefits. One is there's no batteries and they are very durable. But irons can fail. Don't think irons are invincible. Those can fail as well. So now the next thing is really testing this sucker out, seeing how it performs. All right, so now we are going to actually shoot this sucker. Now, granted, it's not gonna be, you know, thousands of rounds or anything crazy. We're just gonna run a few little tests with this, but also add some optics and kind of change up the gun a little bit. The way it's configured right now, it's around $966, something like that, with the irons, sling, and a white light on the gun. That did not factor in any support gear, such as a mag carrier, holster and a pistol, chest rig, another method of carrying more rifle magazines. That's literally just this right here. So that didn't include ammunition either. So I'll be shooting Winchester 55 grain through this. Important thing to note with this barrel, this is a 1 in 9 twist barrel, and I have been told that one of the issues with this gun is it doesn't like heavier grain 5.56 rounds. So it actually favors lighter ammo. So something like 55 grain, like the Winchester that I'm shooting. So if you are wanting to, like, you know, buy one of these, build it out and shoot 77 grain, you know, boat tail, match grade, super accurate, you know, the bullet like homes to the target. You just like shoot here and it hits. One of the things I want to do right off the bat, I have zeroed this gun already. I've shot approximately 100 rounds in the prone position, so not doing anything real fun. Zeroing three different optics and the iron sights. And what I determined during that is this gun needs lube. So gonna use ALG Go Juice to get this dude set up. And then I'm gonna go shoot this sucker. Ooh, broke perf up top, 5.6, yep. That is on the right side, 6-0. And that is center of the head. So, here are my 3 hits. That's more or less out. I'm not happy with that. And that was in a 5.6. So it went from a 6.0 to a 5.6. So I'm not making my standard with iron sights, but that's still decently fast. Now let's do 5 rounds from 10. So a little bit of recoil management, tracking my sights. So 10 yards right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Triggers, just a normal mil spec, you know, 5.5, 6 pound trigger. 5 rounds. Little trigger freeze right there. Entire group is low. Actually, I fired 6 rounds. That's why. I fired 5 and I felt like I needed 1 more. And that was my 6th at the end, because I kind of came out of my everything. That was a 1.6 for 5 rounds. 1.98 for 6. One more time. Try to aim a little higher on this guy. Six rounds again. That's all right though. Not the fastest splits ever. We do have all A zones, and yeah. And with the iron sights, it's a little harder to track. Like your initial point of aim, there's a lot more stuff going on. If I'm running a red dot, it's obviously a lot easier because you can focus on the target instead of focusing on your front sight post. And with me being left eye dominant, when I shoot irons, I actually have to shut my left eye. So all the data from here is translating to my right eye. So it makes it a little slower as far as like irons go. I'm just gonna do 5 rounds as fast as we can. All right, well, we have 2 Charlies because I'm bringing the gun up onto the target, and then these 3 Alphas. Well, actually, I fired 6 rounds total. First shot in a 5-0, a 1-6 split, a 1-5 split, a 1-7 split, a 1-6 split, a 1-4 split. So I'm getting good splits with this gun, so the trigger is, you know, just fine, not a problem. We're gonna start getting a little wild with our drills because just standing still is boring. So what this was 5 rounds at about 30 yards. Not bad. So that's what we have at 35. That was in 3.58 seconds. Pretty happy with that. I took this guy a little bit quicker. Got 1 Charlie. This guy riding in position, which is pretty slow. 1 Charlie with a total time of 10:77. So I haven't put the bad lever on here, which is a great little accessory for malfunction clearing and reloads and stuff. But we're just gonna do some standard reloads on steel here at about 30. Reduce C-zone. All right, very controlled 1, 2, 3, 4 drill. So it's 1 in the center, 2 on the left, 3 far right, so you're transitioning back and forth. 3 over here, all A's. 4 back to the center, all A's. And that was very controlled. That was like 80% run in a 382. Normally I'll shoot the sub 3 with like a red dot and other stuff. So that's not bad though. It's very respectable. It's very respectable for 100% alphas. So the one thing I'd really want to change on this gun, and it's not that expensive, is adding a QD plate here at the lower receiver. Then I can move the sling to here. It gives me a little more flexibility and movement with the stock. It also means if I end up running the stock over my shoulder, my sling doesn't then fall behind my back, and then when I go to present, as you can see, problems. I don't like having a sling here, although it is great if you're actually just carrying your rifle a whole lot on your back, because that helps keep the gun from obviously like tipping out and whatnot. So kind of like so. There are pros and cons to both, but this isn't bad. You know, one attachment here in the middle, 1 here at the stock. It's not the end of the world. Solid run. I hit this guy rolling into position, and I've got Alpha Charlie. I'll take it. I'll take it. A 774. And this guy should be 2 alphas. Yep. All right, close steel is 302. Middle steel 352, 353. Minivan steel 410, 11. So 300. Close steel. That's high, right?
Whoa, close.
Oh yeah. Dialing it. Wow. All right. Okay. All right.
Right.
Come out. Still not bad. Out to 400 with this piece of crap. It's not necessarily a piece of crap, but with iron sights, with the dot, it'd be way easier. All right, so we just did a bunch of different stuff with this in a sub $1,000 configuration. Of course, not counting support gear and whatnot, or ammo, or extra magazines, but sub $1,000 configuration with a very good set of iron sights, with a Surefire white light, an actual Surefire on the gun, and taking it out to 400 meters and all this stuff up close. Now, I haven't done like a group test with this ammo to see exactly how accurate this gun is. I don't do a whole lot of stuff like that. I just come out here and shoot and see what the gun can do. So it can do stuff. So now the question is, what other accessories can we put on the gun to kind of change up the performance of the weapon? And the biggest performance increase or change would be with a red dot. So instead of having to align two pieces of metal where the front sight post is covering up the entire target, the entire like berm area at 400 meters, I can actually have a more refined aiming point. Now there's a couple things to consider. Because this has a metal gas block and we don't want to put polymer sights on there, you know, if you're going to keep backup irons on this gun, they probably should, the front should at least be metal. That's going to be pretty expensive, fairly pricey to do metal sights on there. I could leave the set of front, irons on this gun. I would like to have backup irons, especially if I have a cheaper red dot. But the problem with a small red dot like this or a hollow sun, a T2 style micro, red dot, is the irons are going to take up quite a bit of the field of view, basically what you're seeing through the optic. So I generally will avoid running fixed irons on my smaller micro dots. If it's a larger red dot, like an aim point where I can kind of float the red dot, above the center of the window, above the sights, I'm happy. If it's an EOTech, I'm happy. But one of these little guys, these sights it's going to be pretty busy looking through there, especially if you shut one eye to shoot, at range or something like that. You're going to run into issues. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull the irons off of this, so that will save $130. I would like to have two sets of irons though if I'm using a budget optic, a cheaper red dot. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the section here on the side, and we could do the streamlight pressure pad up top. That could be kind of cool. So now for the red dot. Now we have a few options here. I brought out a $140 SIG Romeo 5, which is essentially a hollow sun. It doesn't have the solar panel though. The Spark Solar, essentially a hollow sun, but does have a solar panel. $280 value. And then of course the Aimpoint Pro. Now this is my favorite entry-level, high-quality optic that doesn't cost like Aimpoint T2 money. So I really want to put this thing on here, but we're going to go budget to begin with the Romeo 5. And this is on an absolute. This is an even lower third. So there we go. So we have just increased the value of the gun. Let's see, we added the streamlight, which is $100. It's like $100, $110. We removed this light, which the total package for this was $31 and $75, so about the same price. Those have equaled out. $130 sights are now gone, and we have added a $140 red dot. So a little different configuration for about the same money, but I don't have backup irons. So if this dies, I am screwed. Headshot standard, let's go. 5-1. A-box, 5-2. One more. That's inside. 4-7. So I'm about 500ths to 800ths of a second faster with better hits, better accuracy, better marksmanship, going from a red dot to, from iron sights to a red dot. So yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. .29, sub 3. So sub 3 second run. My accuracy though won't be quite as good. Alpha Charlie on the line. And I've got 1 Charlie. So that's 2 Charlie so far. 3 Charlie. A 3 Charlie run in sub 3 seconds with a $1,000-ish build. It's not bad. It's not bad. All right, I knew I threw one up here in the Delta on the position arrival. This may not be fully zeroed. Feeling like it's going right, just a little bit. Total time of 7.9, because I'm feeling like I'm shooting. There's stuff hitting right. 300. One more. Yep. Right. How much?
off on the ground. Oh, that's half a mil.
Okay, I'm aiming to the left of the dirt pile.
Oh, that's on. Just barely right. Just barely right. No call. Just barely right. Hit!
Guess where I was aiming?
Oh gosh, off the, well, back off into the weeds for sure.
About 20 inches left, if not 2 feet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
High. Right. Left. Hit.
All right, yeah, so that's 3 feet left. That is disappointing that this cheap optic won't return to 0. Oh, but wait, I knew that was gonna happen. So one of the biggest issues with some of these more budget options for optics is their failure to return to 0. Now these optics generally aren't marketed very heavily as being a return to 0 optic, but I zeroed this yesterday, shot steel at 100, no problem, you know, holding a little low because it's a 52mm 0. But then shooting at 350, I'm holding 4 feet left in order to get a hit to that distance. So if I'm aiming at that target, there's no way I'm getting a hit with that much of a shift in my point of aim and point of impact. So this little optic right here, I know you guys are going to say, oh, well, you didn't torque it down to the exact specified amount. Don't think that's going to matter. I torqued it down roughly about as much as I did when I zeroed it, and it's off 4 feet at 300. Now up close, the headshot drill I just did at 5 yards, yeah, I was fine. All my hits were fine. But when I was shooting this stuff here at 10, 12 yards, I could tell it was a little bit right. I had my optic on the steel, I'd pull a shot, and then I'd go, yeah, that's off to the right. Like I saw the dust pile, but it should have been a hit. So right off the bat, I could tell it was off, and sure enough, at 140, I had a very hard time getting hits, and then at the 400 with Josh on a scope, we were able to see exactly, how off the gun is. Now, if I put this against a 0 target, 25-50mm 0 target, it would be off a little bit, but that starts to magnify with distance and be off even more. So let's try out a different optic, see if it returns to 0. And now you might think, oh, well, Lucas, I don't pull my optic all the time. I don't need it to return to 0. And if that's the case, that's fine. Just understand that these cheaper optics with these cheaper mounts that are just one of these to hold it down, probably aren't going to return to 0 very reliably. You're going to have to check 0, confirm 0, and 0 it every time the optic comes off the gun. Whereas the Same Point Pro should return to 0 just fine. Now the Spark is the same mounting system. It's going to be Torx to tighten down, but in this case there is a recoil lug to help with the fitment, and it's actually going to be 2 posts, 2 screws to actually hold this to the gun. So in theory, this should return to 0 a little more reliably, again, in the same spot. We're going to tighten it roughly the same, hand tight plus a little extra, and we're going to hope that this returns to 0. And we're just going to see if this returns to 0 or not. Well, there's a bunch of hits right there. So it appears the more expensive option is better. What do you know about that? So now let's go and shoot to 350, 400.
Hit.
Oh, looky there.
Hit. Right. Hit.
What do you know? The $280 option actually returns 0. Is a better optic in general than the $130. Oh my goodness. What a revelation. What a revelation. Not just as good. Now we'll go, we're going to shift to the 350.
Okay. Left. Hit.
Running opposite side in an 815. Fired an extra. There's a little makeup. Braking perf. I'm just going to say Alpha Charlie on that though. And then this guy over here. It's a cool little gun. Weighs absolutely nothing too. We have 2 alphas from the start. Standing position, first target. Very easy. So much faster. Getting off target, focusing on that steel. Do it again. It was a 207, 8 rounds. red dot really is the way. 216. We are golden. Up close, of course. With a 1.6 split, a 1.3 split, a 1.4 split, a 1.5 split, a 1.4 split. So a mil-spec trigger. Just because you have a mil-spec doesn't mean it's the end of the world. With training, you can still run it pretty fast, also fairly accurate at range. If I were to upgrade the trigger in this gun, if I had one of these, I would do an ALG combat trigger. It's like 60 bucks. We've got them on our website. And I've really been enjoying those, even in my more expensive guns. Solid trigger. All right, so it's day 2. We shot around 360-ish rounds in this last salvo of training and playing with this gun. And then before that, I shot around 60, I think, for zeroing all the different optics and iron sights. So we're at a little over 400. Now that is nothing. That is nothing in the grand scheme of things as far as testing, like the longevity of these parts, the barrel, all that good stuff. But it can be an indicator of sorts. But we're not going to dwell too much on the round count. We're going to shoot another 300 or so today, and we'll kind of see where we're at. Start off, we're going to do some 555s with a solar spark, which did retain 0, which I'm very happy about, out to 400 meters. 5 rounds. Drive through. Yeah. So, boink, 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 boink. Cool. And 1 mic. I need to pull tighter and actually have better stock placement. Let's run again. That's fine. I felt a little better. I still threw one on the high left side. So there's the one I called, and the rest are all A. So called him. The rest are alphas. All right, we'll take it. It was a 4-4. So shooting this drill a few times can be really helpful to kind of gauge what's going on. That's me not timing my shot. I was watching the dot rise to here on the trigger brake, come up. Something to work on. Easy to fix. Just takes time. Swing. That's a perfect example of why I hate slings that attach at the stock. You throw this up, falls right behind you, and then, perfect example. Hate it. Alpha Charlie on him. 2 A's. He's solid. $300. $350. Getting out of this car sucks. $400. Can't bend the barrel. What? Took a little while. All right, so we'll drill out to 400. So as you guys can see, you can take a budget, cheap, inexpensive gun like this and you can still put it to work. Now that's not to say that these parts will last just as long as some of the grade A and grade B stuff out there, because, well, maybe this is grade B, I don't know. But it can still do things. Now, the funny thing about the internet is you'll find a lot of people that say, my M&P has worked great for me. My XD has worked great for me. And then if you ask those people how much they shoot, it's like twice a year. And the reality is, if this gun sits in my closet, it's gonna work great. If it sits in my car and I never shoot it, it's gonna work great. Gear you don't use works great. But if you actually start using gear, that's where you start to realize, ooh, some things that are inexpensive, like the Romeo 5, works if I never pull it off the gun, put it on, but if I try to do that, it's not gonna retain 0. and other examples with other parts as well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this gun, we're going to change a couple parts out. We're going to make it a little more expensive. So, you know, you can envision someone who starts out with this, they start to buy some new accessories, start to build it out. Later they can ditch the whole gun, keep all the accessories, put it on their next gun. So we are going to move away from a $280 red dot, although this one has been performing pretty well just for the very limited drills we've been doing. And we're going to add something a little more name brand, a little more fancy, although still very entry level as far as that company goes. And that is the Aimpoint Pro, one of my favorite optics. $445, or you find them, you know, cheaper used. And you get all the quality of Aimpoint, plus you also get the crazy battery life. Now, obviously, some of these newer optics with like solar panels and, you know, Elon Musk stuff on them, like they also have some good battery life. But this sucker right here, this is the OG when it comes to battery life. We sell these at T.REX, we sell a lot of them, and I use these quite a bit on my guns as well. The only downside to these versus like the T2, the T1, you know, some of those other optics that are a little more expensive is it's heavier and bigger. But the larger field of view is actually really useful if you have something like a fixed front sight post. So if I had, let's say, that set of Daniel irons still on here, I wouldn't want to put a micro like the Spark on here because that's super cluttered, like I talked about earlier. I would want to have something a little bigger like this Aimpoint where I can float the dot actually above the center of the glass. I know there's some parallax stuff, but close range doesn't matter. And get that above the iron sights that are kind of in the way. Oh, that's a hit. All right, where's the yard? Ha ha! Aimpoint does it again! Oh, sling! $300.
Left. Hey!
$350. $400. Oh, I can barely see him. Woo! This lighting right now is the absolute worst for long range. So the price point we're at with this gun right now is like $1,240, something like that. Just for this right here with like the single magazine it comes with. Obviously, I'm gonna need more stuff than that. I'm going to need extra magazines. I'm going to need, shoot, what was the other thing? Of course, the ammunition that goes in the gun, which based on what's going on, ranges from anywhere from $300 to $1,000 for a case of 1,000. So, you know, going to the reality of can you build a rifle for $1,000? The answer is yes, you can build a rifle for $1,000, but it's not going to be very useful without all the other support equipment. And the perfect example for that is night vision. You can buy a PVS-14 for anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 based on, you know, how used and what type of tube it has. But that night vision actually isn't going to be that useful besides wearing it around your neck unless you buy a mount, a helmet, a laser for your rifle or some sort of aiming system, an IR illuminator, and that's going to add another $1,000 to $2,000. So just saying, oh, I can buy a rifle for $1,000, oh, but that doesn't include the mags, the ammo, and the gear to actually support the rifle, it's just not a realistic expectation, and we need to kind of work on killing that expectation because it's not very reasonable. So let's talk about kit. So there's a few things that we've been using for the video. We're not done. We're gonna do a little more shooting, but a few things in particular. So we're at $1,200-ish right here for the rifle. But as soon as I want a way to be able to carry extra ammunition on me, obviously back pockets work, mags fall out of them really easily though, or front pockets are a little better, but they're harder to get at and are less comfortable. But if I actually want to, you know, if I'm purchasing a rifle for the reason of say 2020, which I'm going to say right now, people were not buying the M&P Sport in 2020 to shoot competition. Okay, we're buying the M&P Sport 2 in 2020 because of all the other stuff going on. So again, this is not a sporting rifle. That's not why people buy it. You don't have professional 3-gunners shooting the M&P Sport 2 and 3-gun. That's not what they're shooting. They're shooting much better rifles. The people buying these guns are concerned citizens or people that are concerned that they're going to get banned. They understand the importance of them and they fly off the shelf. So if you are purchasing an M&P Sport 2 for the purpose of protecting yourself or the Second Amendment or tyranny, government, whatever, foreign invasion, national security, whatever, the gun alone is not enough. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff, logistical support you need, but you're gonna need some way of carrying extra ammunition for the gun. One mag is not gonna get you very far. So there's a few options out there that I would personally recommend. Obviously, you have rifle mag carrier. This is a Mars carrier. It's like $45 or so with a tech lock. It's what I've been using. Great way to carry one magazine with good retention where the magazine's not gonna go flying, but it's also accessible. So hey, that works really well. I could also do something like our new sidecar with the rifle mag carrier. $40 to add on to this. So if I'm already using this as a setup and I decide, man, I really need to wear a rifle mag, low vis with my rifle in the car next to me or in a bag, it is doable. Now, how many people actually need this? Not very many, but we have it as an option. I know people are really upset that, they don't have a reason to own this, so we shouldn't have made it. That's not why we design products. It's for certain people. If you don't need it, don't buy it. Go buy something else. Buy something like this that'll be more useful for you. But then the one that I recommend the most to people, there's obviously plate carriers and armor, very important, but you're looking at $500 minimum to get a decent setup with L210s and like, an AC1 or some other type of slick carrier or even like an older plate carrier. But what I actually recommend is something like this, chest rig. Now, there's all sorts of chest rigs out there. This is a Mayflower Velocity. It's like $240, but it gives me the ability to carry 4 rifle magazines. I could carry more if I want on the sides. All my extra stuff. I've got communication. I can have water or medical, and then I can have pistol mags, all the stuff. This entire rig right here, though, fully loaded with everything, is not $250. It's a little bit more. So again, expectations. The Ready Rig, I know they've been out of stock quite a bit, but they should be coming back soon. This is only $130, and it gives you the ability to carry 7 magazines, technically, really recommended 3 to 5 on there. So for like between $120 and say $200, you can go get a chest rig to carry the stuff you need for the rifle, for the purpose that you bought the rifle. The actual purpose you bought the rifle. A lot of people lie to themselves and they're like, oh no, well, I bought it because times is weird, but I don't need to carry extra ammo. Well, no, you bought the rifle because times is weird. That's why you need more ammo. You need the equipment to actually supplement the rifle. Minutemen didn't have just their rifle. They also had all their other stuff to complement the rifle at the same time. It's the exact same concept. So this all plays into the whole, can you build a rifle for $1,000? And the answer is no, you can't. Once you add all the support gear, kind of like with night vision, it's not going to be $1,000. You can do it cheaper. You can obviously do it over here versus, all the way up here. But realistic expectations is something that's very important. Sling. Oh, this sucks. Yes, we got 3 A's on him. One's on the line. 3 alphas right here. This is some decent shooting with a mil-spec trigger. Giant red dot. I've got 2 A's and a Charlie. Dragged one on the right. And then, yeah. Breaking perf, but it's still a Charlie. I'm not gonna say it. So 2 Charlies. For those of you that say sped up, there's 233. But we have to do it 3 times in a row. So we're gonna do the exact same thing 3 times in a row. Stand by. Right side. That was in a 246. 3 alphas. First target is super easy. Just bring the gun straight to it. Alpha, Charlie, Alpha. And then this guy, these 3 right here. 1 Charlie. So that's, what is that? 2 Charlie, I think. Yeah. And that's in a 246. So 233, a 246. One more. Here we go. Stand by. Ooh, yeah. 247. A tiny bit slower. Tiny bit slower. Got our first Charlie on this guy. Charlie. All alphas. All alphas. I think it's these two right here. And that's in a 247. So consistency. That's what we're looking for. While these targets are up close and people are like, oh, well, they're up close, going fast is the hard part. Being controllable is the hard part. Being consistent is the hard part. The distance of these isn't hard, but all those other things make it quite difficult. So we've just finished around 650 rounds. Might have been a little bit more with this rifle and a bunch of different configurations, shooting it from 2 meters all the way out to 400 meters. Now, I know what some of you all might be thinking. You might be thinking, oh wow, Lucas just did a video with my favorite M&P Sport 2 rifle. He just justified my purchase of $650. This gun is great, it's awesome, it's gonna last forever. Wrong. I've only shot 650 rounds. I have no idea if this gun is all of a sudden gonna explode on me at the 2,000 round mark, or if it's gonna give me a bunch of crazy problems because the tolerancing is off and the quality control is trash. For all I know, this rifle will give me all sorts of problems down the road, kind of like a used car you buy from a car lot. There is a reason there are budget rifles on the market that come at a lower price point compared to higher end rifles from companies with more quality control standards and better components. Like, there is a reason there is varied pricing. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like there aren't companies who upcharge for quality, or what they say is quality, but you're really not getting that quality. And that especially happens on influencer branded rifles, where you buy a rifle with someone else's name on it, like a signature line or whatever. I personally am not a huge fan of that, because you are spending a lot of extra money on someone else's rifle, when the reality should be, this is your rifle. You're gonna paint this gun. You're gonna understand the ins and outs of this gun. It is your rifle, not someone else's. So I'll never have a signature rifle. I've told lots of companies who've come to me like, oh, Lucas, we'd love to do a Lucas Botkin carbine. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna do a Lucas Botkin carbine. That's gonna cost the customer extra money. It's gonna cost people extra money, and it should be their rifle, not my rifle. So as far as what rifle should you buy? If you go and buy a budget rifle, such as this M&P Sport 2, just understand that due to the price point that it's at, and due to some of the corners that have to get cut in production, with quantities, with quality control, with speed and time and labor and all of that, we're a manufacturing company, I know a thing or two about that, that there are gonna be some things that get passed on. There are gonna be some shortcuts that occur with this weapon that allows this gun to be $650 retail, so sold to dealers for probably $560 or so, which means the company's gonna make this much money on it, so they've gotta cut a lot of corners. Versus a rifle like this one. This is a custom 13.7. It's got over, I think, 10,000-ish rounds through it. Suppressed, so a little bit more abuse. This is a gun I've been shooting for a while. Made in-house, but with components that come off of a line with much more quality control. So that's something that you really need to understand. While this gun, worked for this YouTube video, or this gun worked for your other favorite YouTuber, that doesn't mean it's going to work in a few years when you get that round count higher. That's not to say this gun is going to have problems once you throw a suppressor on it, or once you want to start modifying it and then you realize, wow, things are really out of tolerance. I actually can't modify this gun very easily. There's a time and a place for these guns. I'm not going to sit here and say that, no, always go and buy Gucci, always buy, you know, Knight's Armament or something crazy like that. No, like not everyone can afford that. I do also want to say that budget is very relative. I see a lot of folks on there when I talk about, you know, like, oh, the Aimpoint is a budget optic, and they go, no, it's not, it's $400. Like, no, compared to an Aimpoint T2, for certain folks, the Aimpoint Pro is a budget optic. For some people, budget might be, you know, the SIG optic for $140. Budget is very relative. There's not like one class that, you know, gets to determine what is budget and everyone else can't. Like, certain night vision is budget to certain people, and then to other people that's considered fancy. Like, that's just how it is. But some of these components, they are on the lower end of the spectrum as far as what is available on the market. So you can say they're, you know, budget. This is the cheapest Aimpoint you can get from Aimpoint. So it is their budget optic. It's not an Aimpoint T2. Then you have these other optics that get a little bit cheaper. But at the end of the day, regardless of what you're picking, whether you're picking that grade A rifle from your favorite, you know, rifle company, or your favorite budget rifle that you vehemently want to defend on AR15.com and say that it's just as good as all those other guns, if you suck, you suck. It all comes down to training. As you all saw, there were a bunch of drills demonstrated with this budget rifle. If I were to take a fancier rifle, such as this one right here, the times would be similar. They wouldn't be wildly different. This gun is not going to give me, you know, +2 speed and, you know, faster reloads and all that stuff. It might help with, you know, marksmanship and accuracy, especially with that optic, of course, on the 400-meter stuff. But that rifle doesn't necessarily give me a huge edge on just the shooting ability and the shooting skill that has to be done for those different drills. This gun is actually going to perform pretty similar. The difference is just going to be in round count and longevity and all that good stuff. So I hope that was helpful, guys. Make sure you get out there and train. And the most important thing you can buy, after you own a firearm, is one of these suckers right here. This is $130. It's a shot timer, pack timer. You can use it for dry fire. You can use it when you're at the range. Yes, this is going to add $130 to your budget, which goes into the whole can you build a rifle for $1,000? Not really, once you factor in the support equipment. This is very important support equipment that you should be using in your training if you want to get good at marksmanship and also have a good balance of speed. This is how you measure speed. You measure marksmanship with a target, paper target, or whatever, but you absolutely need to have one of these. $130, that is going to affect your overall budget, which is why, no, you cannot build a rifle for $1,000. Cool off, faster, especially down here. You are very hot. What a hot gun. Yeah, around the gas block. Yeah, get it all in there.